Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for September 4th. We'll call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of conflict? None. Seeing none, we're going to get an approval of our agenda today. I just need someone to move that. Moved by Councillor McAleer, seconded by His Worship. Adoption of our minutes attached from August 21st. Someone to move that.
Moved.
Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Tweel. Is there any business arising from those minutes?
Yes. That right there.
Yep.
Okay, we'll just hang.
Go ahead there, Councillor Tweel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Scott, it's on the Royalty Junction Road here just in the last 48 hours. Just wondering where we're at. Are we, all of the prerequisites you outlined, a comprehensive approach to the reconstruction of the Royalty Junction Road. Just looking for a status report as to where the department is with that.
Is that in our minutes, Councillor Tweel? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm just wanting to make sure that we're staying on track. Okay. Scott?
Councillor, if you're referring to status update of the work out there, is that my understanding?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean,
I would have to take that under advisement and send you a message afterwards. I don't have that information available at this moment.
fair enough, thank you.
Okay, you'll get an update on that, Councillor Tweel, and
Yep.
your worship.
Madam Chair, just to follow up on package C, I know that we set aside $1 million. Just wanted to know the status of where we're at. Like I know the package A and package B came out with the streets, like how many kilometers for each of the projects in the package A and B. Will that be forthcoming soon there, Mr.
Your
Mr.
Worship, so
Adams?
the document has been completed. The review of what streets we're able to complete this year has been addressed by all the departments, and we will circulate that list to committee and council. I probably can get it done tomorrow. We'll circulate it out to everyone. And the tender should be going, I believe, live in the next day or two, if it hasn't gone already.
And through the chair to the chief engineer, are we contributing to any of the paving outside of the tender for the Eastern Gateway Big Dig project, or is that all part of the $14 million? Like if you look at Grafton Street East coming down from Grafton Street East going west or going east to the bridge from Weymouth Street, is that all part of the package, sir? Is that something that we're going to be responsible for maybe in package C?
So your worship, so any of the paving that we will be doing on site, other than a few minor adjustments to some asphalt within the actual event grounds, always within the original scope of the work. So all asphalt that is going to be done by our contractor will be done, is already part of that original scope. And then the province is going to marry up to us once our work's completed.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I don't know if you've been in the area, but I was there today. It looks like the cleanup is going on now. A lot of work is going on, and I believe our project manager is Boyd Woodard. So there's a lot happening. I don't know if we have engineers from our water and wastewater down in that area, but there's a lot of activity. And when you get so much activity going on, you need a lot of oversight. So just keep that in mind.
I'm sure, thank you. And we can have more discussion, Ed, for under new business, because that really wasn't part of that, but thank you.
But I extended it through the page.
Yes, I know, I
package
snuck
C,
it
yeah.
in there, yeah, I got
You
that.
just have to link the dots.
Yes, that was great. Okay, so.
I got one more.
Go ahead, Councillor Tweel.
Thank you. It's in relationship to the tender and going through that that organization that I guess municipalities across the country are utilizing, Scott. It's called Canoe. Canoe. At our last meeting, at this committee meeting, reference was made, the analogy was drawn between Enterprise PEI and
Enterprise Fleet Management.
Enterprise Fleet Management. Okay, so, yeah, I think you referenced that, Mr. Mayor. So, and I brought it up at the council meeting. I supported the tender, but I just want to, again, get it clear in my mind, Scott, because of what had taken place with Enterprise Fleet Management, where all of the companies here, all the car dealerships here were adamantly opposed to the Enterprise Fleet Management and Council subsequently overturned that decision. So again, there's nothing to fear here entering into any type of an arrangement, formal arrangement with this canoe organization. I just want to have that crystal clear in my mind. I did vote for it because of the urgency. I appreciated the time sensitivity, and I didn't want to hold Public Works back in any which way, shape, or form, but I just want to make sure that we're not entering into an arrangement where it's superseding the tendering or request for proposals or anything to do that gives local business that opportunity to bid.
Councillor Twill, I'm going to answer that because we did have discussion at the council meeting that we were guaranteed that this was a one-time thing, an option that we were able to use. There was no long-term commitment. It will be something that I think when we go through this procurement process that we have to look in to see what kind of steps and stuff. But as far as that tender that we already supported in council, so it's passed and done, and Richard or Eleanor or Scott, you can confirm it, but with 100% guarantee, we were told it was a one-time, we have no long-term commitment. It worked in this situation, so it's not anything that you have to worry about. There's nothing set in stone. We're not locked into anything until we proceed. Correct. Okay. So let's move on into our first report. I'm just trying to get back to my... So as Councillor Twill had requested, a second review of Bayfield Street, Douglas Street, Eden Street, Summer Street, Valley Street, and Wendy Drive, and included is a report which demonstrates that there's definitely been some change in some of those streets. And according to the report, Scott, you've indicated that in a couple of the streets will require further work in the coming years, but you're looking at considering Wendy Drive that went from poor to very poor condition in the tender C package, but I'll let you report.
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, so as you can see on the table, yes, conditions do go down on year over year and depends on the type of winter and the previous. Typically when a road is starting to already hit poor shape, it does go poor it gets worse quickly just because there's cracking and all that good stuff, and water gets in there in the winter months and freeze and thaws and makes it even worse. So this is not unexpected at the end of the day to see these rates drop over a winter. That being said, we are looking at if we, again, we'll send out that list. I can't remember where we're at on what streets ended up on the list. But one thing this committee and council need to be very aware of is when we go to pave a street, we look at all the existing infrastructure that's around the street, whether it's sidewalks, water and sewer infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure. And a lot of those repairs are done by our own crews. Well, our own crews already have a significant amount of work that is already scheduled for this year that is on the books. And so we have to be mindful of those schedules and to be reasonable on what could be accomplished with the additional $1 million. In an ideal world, we would have our full amount of money allotted to us at the budget time, because then we could plan accordingly what we plan to do for the following year. So again, the streets did go down in PCI or in terms of condition, and are being considered for street resurfacing, and we'll circulate that list on what is going to be able to be done this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions regarding the report? Councillor Twill.
Yeah, thank you for that, Scott. And as you pointed out, I mean, you look at the ratings here. I'm not an engineer, but it was pretty clear to see what was taking place. And this has been on the minds of the residents for a number of years. I mean, you look at Bayfield, University Avenue, just an unmitigated disaster, very poor. Douglas Street from Queen to Spring Park Road, that's lower Douglas, Scott. That's not, from Queen to University. That's lower Douglas, poor. Eden Street, it's rated fair. Our crews practically put an entire surface over Eden Street for all intents and purposes. I mean, there's a substantial amount of asphalt went down, and rightly so. Because, again, it was just, to my mind, it was unusable. And we have a lot of residents and a lot of businesses on that street that rely on that street to commute back and forth. And I think the paving crew for the Public Works Department in the interim did a fantastic job. So I want to pass that on to the working crew. I think did a good job in the interim. Summer Street, no surprise, poor. And then Wendy Drive, as you pointed out, Scott, very poor. Valley Street, from Conley to Douglas, very poor. So I know what you're saying, Scott, about the infrastructure, underground water and sewer. That's taken a very comprehensive approach. And the sidewalks, I agree with you there. But I felt the urgency to bring the notice of motion to council. I felt the urgency because of the state of the streets. I wasn't, to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking about the sidewalks at the time. It's not that I'm not, but I was concentrating on the state of those streets. So I appreciate, you know what I appreciate? I appreciate the objectivity, Scott. You could have come out and said, well, they're not that bad, and really, it's what we expected. But when I look at these results, I very much appreciate the fairness and objectivity of the second go-around and doing the ratings. That puts me in a much better state of mind. So now I can go back and say to the council, or not to the council, but to the constituents, here's a copy of the report. Hey, I believe, Scott, I'm safe in saying this, they're going to be done sooner rather than later. So it's fair for me to say that, correct?
That would be correct, because we see.
No, I know, but I gotta know.
We just have to approve the money, and they're going to do
I know,
the
I understand that, Chair, but I'm talking directly to my constituents, and I want to make sure what I'm saying to them is accurate. Every single solitary syllable is extremely accurate.
Okay. Madam Chair. Again, there's the response from your Department of Public Works. They did a review, got results that showed there's some deficiencies. But as Scott, our chief engineer, said, Madam Chair, Douglas, 2 sidewalks. Wendy, no sidewalks. So we're going, there's one on the south side that goes around to Kirkwood Drive. But on Douglas, it's 2 sides. So if we are to do something, Scott, we're not doing them all this year because there's many other streets throughout the city that need paving.
Well,
No, just let me finish. We listen to you. We listen to you. And Madam Chair's got the handle on chair in the meeting. So Scott, could I ask if we're moving, like what you're planning to do is take the one that would be the least disruption in terms of new sidewalks, stormwater management, maybe water and sewer. So if you look at that list, would it be Wendy? Would it be Valley, Summer, Eden, Douglas, or Bayfield? Madam Chair, can I ask?
Well, yeah, I can tell you the answer without even coming to Scott, but then I'm going to tell you that we also had a rating review where we saw a street in Ward 6 where there's need, and I'm guessing what they're going to do is they're going to look at these streets, and based on the $1 million that we approved for tender package C, they're going to see what they're going to be able to accomplish on that without, and the ones that require further work, AKA sidewalk work or water and sewer work, are going to be bumped until next year. But Scott, again, I shouldn't speak for you, but
No,
that's what I
Madam
heard
Chair.
today, if you could confirm that.
Just follow up what you just said. That's right. Fair distribution of paving for the whole city. That's what we're about here.
I think
Towards
everybody's
1 to 10.
okay with that.
Point
And
of
I don't
order.
think you were arguing that, Councillor
Point of order here. I mean, I tried the fair distribution, but I was told in no uncertain terms, no, we're doing the worst first. Okay, so file the notice of motion. There are the results. Okay, there are
and
the
there's-
results, and the department, to its credit,
Yeah.
did an objective, independent, fair analysis. I think I'm safe in saying that, Mr. Adams. So,
What we'll see, Councillor Twill, is that there's probably other streets with ratings, PCI ratings that are in around that range. They're going to look at kilometers, they're going to look at money, and he's going to provide us with a list, hopefully tomorrow, with what he plans to get done with the $1 million that we approved. Hopefully, it sounds like Wendy Drive would probably be there this year, but it'll depend on what comes out tomorrow on what the rest of the data shows. Scott?
Hey, Madam Chair, that's correct. So I pulled up the list here quickly. So we are doing Wendy Drive from Kirkwood to Queen Street as part of this year.
Okay.
Just because there is minimal outside or existing infrastructure that we have to repair. Again, worst first is correct. We create our list worst to first. Then we have to go through and look at all the other infrastructure that's impacted. And you get roads like, we'll say, just throwing this out there, Lower Malpeck Road. There's hardly any city infrastructure that impacts that road, right? There's ditches out there, it's shoulder road. It's very easy to go out and mill and pave and repair that road. But when we get into the downtown core, there's so much more infrastructure that needs repair and maintenance ahead of street resurfacing. Because nothing worse, and we've seen this happen before, we went and paved a road and literally that afternoon, water and sewer was there digging it up because there was a leak. So we don't want to see that ever happen again. We're trying to avoid that. It's poor planning on our part. And we, ever since then, we need to make sure we're doing a much better job at knowing what infrastructure we have around, what age and condition it is in, and doing the right repair ahead of street resurfacing so that we're not there digging it up in next year or anything like that. Because that's what ends up happening. Once you start digging into that new asphalt and put new patches, then it just starts to speed up the deterioration process. So we want to do it right the first time, replace that existing infrastructure or repair it, and then pave the street in its entirety so it's going to last a lot longer.
We'll look forward to those updates tomorrow to see what streets that are around the
Lasco, I appreciate that, Scott. So, just so I understand it clearly, Wendy Drive is going to make the docket this year. What about, like, if you look at a street like Bayfield Street, which is horrendous, that means you're taking a whole comprehensive approach to Bayfield, correct? Is that safe to say?
Your councillors, that's correct. So just like we did with Bishop and Granville, right? We looked at the entire street, and it turned out really well. We're really happy with it. That's the standard we want to get to. Just milling and paving just is not working. It's deteriorating. We're not getting the life of our asphalts that we should be getting because we're not doing our repair work on all our infrastructure first and then paving. And so that's the goal. Is we will this fall once all the streets are rated and ranked, then we go through that list and say, okay, what needs to be done for other existing infrastructure, and then we also have to say what is manageable, of course, as well. So those are things that we take months to look at, and Richard would know this as well in his former role. We work with the water and sewer team very closely as well, and we finalize that list and to avoid these issues in the future.
And hopefully maybe a roadmap coming into budget time so that we can have a clearer picture of what is needed as far as council when we're approving money.
Madam Chair, I know this subject is always gets a lot of discussion because roads, streets, sidewalks, active transportation pathways, that's one of our primary responsibilities, like police and fire. So I just want to find out, are we, like, for this next package, I went over the previous packages, A and B, that were at 1.6 million both. And we did about 4 kilometers. And some of the, like, we did some that were 1,000 meters, 1,300 meters. Like, could we just try to focus on those streets that are a mix of the old city and the new city? But let's not do those big long stretches because that just puts everything else out of the possibility of getting fixed this year. Could you take that into consideration, Scott?
So, Your Worship, there's 10 streets. The longest one's 480 meters. The rest vary from 125 to 375. So, my apologies. There is one that is 720. But again, these are stretches that it's just how they've been broken up in the city. Sometimes on longer streets we go from intersecting road to intersecting road, and sometimes there's a long stretch. It just gets challenging to end it. You got to find a spot where to end it nicely for a number of reasons, and so that's we do our best to try to spread it around. But again, worst first is the method that the city has chosen. And so we got to make sure we follow that as well as closely as we can while still making sure we're repairing our infrastructure around it.
Thank you.
Ahead. Yep, look forward to that list tomorrow. I think that's good discussion. We'll look forward to I'm sure there'll be more because the tender will have to go out, so we'll be seeing it again and having an opportunity to discuss that again. The second report that we're looking at today is they've went to request for proposal for engineering services, stormwater data collection and modeling. They have a recommendation for us to push to council. Scott, if you want to update us.
Madam Chair, thank you. So yes, this was an activity or a financial activity that we need to better understand our stormwater system here in the city. As storms get worse and climate change and sea level rises, we need to be making better informed decisions on where to be recommended to spend our city money on upgrading and improving our stormwater system around the city. So this is a survey, this was discussed at budget time. Was a recommendation to spend a large sum of money to procure these services, to look at a large swath of land, essentially from Belvedere south towards the water. We'll take into all those areas, and essentially what this consultant will do, will go and pop manhole covers or catch basin covers. They'll look in. They'll figure out the flow of the stormwater, the size of all the piping, and condition. And then from that, they will generate a stormwater model for us that we can take as our base model. We've already done one of these studies recently with the Eastern Gateway as well, so we can bring both those studies together in one big model and continue to build on that until we have an entire model built for the city. Once it's built, then it's easy to update frequently so that we better understand how our system's functioning and handling our storm intensity and sea level rise. So we went for proposals, had 3 submissions, all great submissions, but our team's recommending to award to CBCL Limited in the amount of $254,000 or $254,400 plus applicable taxes.
Well, the scores certainly look like they were the favored people for this, and we did approve this. And I think you're right, it's going to be valuable information moving forward in our future. Is there any questions regarding this certain report before we move
Yes.
it to council?
Yes.
Your worship?
There is. So I see the price as one of the criterion. I know other tenders, we used other criterion. Scott, so did we just use price for this one?
Your worship, no, it was both based on proposal and price. And at the end of the day, the low bid had the best score at the end of the day.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. 85% was technical and 15 was for financial.
That's correct.
So actually, they based it more on what the capabilities were.
Technical is 85%. That's big swath of it, big swath of an area. So, so I'm just sure you're looking just at the engineering part. So could I just follow up, Madam Chair? Is this the first time we've done a stormwater management consulting?
Your worship, as I just mentioned, we just went through one probably 2 years ago now, where they did a section of the city to create a model for the Eastern Gateway. So essentially we have a map, we've created a map of the city that's divided up into, oh goodness, I think it's over 20 different zones that we can figure based on topography of stormwater catchment areas. And so the goal is to do most of the zones that are in the downtown core from Belvedere South, which are the areas the most susceptible to sea level rise and storm intensity increases. So again, this would be part 2, I guess, and then we plan or hope to continue in future years to continue to build on that model so that we have a model for the entire city. Thank you.
That'll be good. I know out in East Royalty, we have some pipes out there that are really old, don't we, Richard? Councillor Tweel, you have a question?
Thank you, Scott, for your report, and appreciate seeing the rating system. To me, that demonstrates and illustrates accountability. And, there's some pretty good reputable firms there that bidded on this, but you come in with a score. Just want to ask you, I know you were involved in the rating. Who else was involved with the rating besides yourself?
So this would have been done between myself and our other engineer, Riley Tweel, to come up with these scores.
Okay. In relation to that, you mentioned the Eastern Gateway Plan, 2 or 3 years ago, you embarked upon an exercise to look at the stormwater management in this particular area. I know you went out to tender for Queen Street. Still waiting for the results of that as well. Hoping I can get some results. And again, I want to report back to the residents in that community and let them know what the game plan is. But I like this approach because, as you pointed out, it illustrates the whole city. It shows where there's deficiencies. It shows where we've got to prioritize the work that needs to be done. You mentioned south of Belvedere. Let me ask you this, Scott. This was talked about at the previous council, is there any thought given into having, and maybe I'm off base, is there any thought given to having stormwater management and sanitary sewer under one umbrella? So when you're doing the work, you're not doing it in isolation of the other?
Councillor Twill, I think we're going to stick to what we're talking about here.
It's a relevant question.
Yeah.
What, relevant question
Well, storm sewer, did you say?
with water and
storm sewer?
I
sewer?
know, we're doing that work, but
Well, he's looking at the
I know
stormwater.
we're doing that work too, but if we're gonna, as Scott in our previous discussion, when you're doing that work, do you look at the whole thing? You referenced Mr. McKeown, who was a former manager of water and sewer. Do you look at all of that, Scott, or do you just concentrate primarily on stormwater management? Don't you think it's a worthy exercise?
So I can't speak to water and sewer. I know they have their own master plans for what they're planning to do in the future. It's a completely different system, right? We're collecting water that we're trying to predict that's going to fall from the sky and into the ground, and there's so many factors. It's completely different from knowing how much capacity in a system is for additional homes for sewer. So a different thing. The reason why typically stormwater falls within public works or with the roadway system is stormwater, the road forms part of your stormwater management plan, right? You need to capture the water, which is used using curb and gutter, right? That's all part of your road construction and management. So that drives that stormwater to your catch basins or to your ditches, and then filters out through then. So it's they're all linked with the stormwater management, or with the actual road features, and stormwater management work together to handle the flow of water. So that's why they usually go hand in hand, and it works well for us here. I'm sure some jurisdictions puts all underground utilities in one area, and that's possible. But I think why it's been separated here is it is, like I say, the roads and stormwater work together in managing our water, but also water and sewer is its own corporation. There's different regulations here in the province for them recapturing their fees. I don't know that full parameters of that, but that's one of the reasons I've been told as well that it ended up under Public Works. It's just water and sewer can recover their fees for their services they provide, where stormwater is not one of those things we recoup funding other than through property taxes.
Good question, though, for the water and sewer.
Yeah.
Interesting discussion.
Just point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yep.
So, Scott, Councillor Tweel talked about, it's a citywide, but I think you looked at some specific areas, downtown, like 240, what is the bid there, to 254,000, 255,000. That's covers an area, but the focus will be those water-sensitive areas like your waterfront, flood zones. Like, I'm just trying to get, which would include Queen Street, correct?
Your worship, so yes, this will build on that project as well, that Queen Street is. And it ended up being the same consultant doing it, so they'll take their data that they've already collected from Queen Street and added. So because we're able to do that, it's just, we're expanding the scope and being able to do more. But yeah, so this takes into all those storm winds and catch basins that essentially lead down to the harbor around the city. So it's a big catchment area, so that's why it is big dollars associated with it. But it's very, very valuable information as we're starting to do major rehabs on our system. Prime example is Eastern Gateway. You know, that's just one piece of the puzzle. There's a number of outfalls around the city that we don't have a lot of great information on, and this will help us understand how our system's functioning and will help direct our decision-making in the future of where we're going to recommend to spend our dollars to prioritize stormwater upgrades.
Madam Chair, I'll move the resolution.
Okay, just hang on, because Councillor McAleer, bless him over there, wants to speak. He might. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. The chair, maybe, or through to the manager, just any timeline, like, does this be awarded? Like, is it a 3-month, 6-month, year project? Any idea?
Councillor, I'll have to confirm the timelines, but if my recollection is correct, most of the data collection happens in the fall, just because there's no snow, so we need to be able to survey every manhole, pop every cover, and know where they all are. They get buried in the winter months or can get buried. Once they collect that data in the fall, over the winter months, they'll build that model and deliver it. And I believe we have a March 31st deadline on it. I think just we typically do that for these types of projects, just the year end to finish it.
Thank you. So it's been moved by His Worship. Someone will second this to council. Councillor Tweel, all in favor of this going to council for approval? Perfect. Thank you. The next report is to provide, purpose was to provide council with an update on the results of the public tendering process for sidewalk package A. Looks like Landmark Construction has been the lowest bidder, 1.248 million. Scott?
Madam Chair, just a point of order. I just bring this up. Landmark Construction, Kern and Briggs Limited, Earth Form. Are you in conflict? I know they weren't
I
low
would
bid.
be, I think, if we were voting for Earth Form, but I don't think, I
I just
would,
want to clarify it. Is
like,
it-
I have nothing, they're recommending for Landmark, who has nothing to do with me,
I
so,
just wanna
and I'm
put it in
not
the-
voting today, but if we need
No, no, no.
clarification.
I just want to get a clarification on
Yeah,
it.
if it was, I would be in conflict, I believe, if Landmark was
Correct, I know
the
that.
successful bidder, but because I'm not, Richard?
I'd suggest you probably still are in conflict, because even though they weren't awarded, you could argue that they should be awarded. I think you'd be safer declaring a conflict
Oh,
of
that's
interest.
fine.
I just want to just make sure that
What's
we have
that,
a clear
Eleanor?
path.
Oh, I'm not, I don't vote here, but at council, I can excuse myself. I can stay in this chair to lead the, let them discuss.
What's that, Councillor?
I think when you're in conflict, there's also the appearance of conflict.
Okay, John, I'm going to let you lead the chair. These,
Could be a tie.
What's that?
I know, that's what I said. Anyways, I move the resolution.
Okay, the resolution's on the floor. Moved by moved by Mayor Brown. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Tweel. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Okay.
Did you want to ask some questions about it, Councillor Tweel?
Any discussion?
Pardon me?
Did you want to ask some questions about it?
You can, okay, yeah, you're right, you're right.
thank you, Councillor McAleer. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have ever thought. I would have thought if it was, but that's fine. I will declare conflict to council on that resolution. Okay, moving on. Maybe I should let Councillor McAleer chair all the time. That was the fastest resolution, I think, ever in public.
We like you, Councillor Macklin.
We're looking now at the report is the West Royalty Commercial Area Master Traffic Plan Update. Scott, if you want to roll out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think everyone's very well aware of the West Royalty Commercial Area Master Traffic Plan, which was accepted by council a few years ago. Since we started this project, and it started back in 2019, we had to make a number of assumptions on, density, what's expected for some parcels of land up there, and without a actual submission to planning from a developer or landowner, we can only use our best guess. Well, since 2019, there has been a number of new developments happening up in that area. Some of the ones that are already public approved are, your Hidden Valley folks with the number of apartment complexes there. We've already seen the increase in intensity behind the Towers Road, off the Towers Road, with a number of groups up there looking to develop here very relatively soon. And it's higher density than we originally anticipated, along with a number of other properties that have recently been sold, that I'm not sure, I don't believe that some of the information is made public, but we've had some discussions with developers and landowners in recent months and weeks. That intensity up in that area is just going to, we believe, exceed our prediction or what we expected from this 2019 report or when we started. So the goal, why this is here, we are urging that we approve this to have CBCL do a reanalyze their model and input all those new developments that we are aware of around the city. Not only in this particular location, but we also have to take into consideration what's happening on Malpeque Road and other areas of the city, because this is the major commercial area of Charlottetown. All that growth needs to come shopping somewhere, so there are some factors, those will play into our anticipated, or will play a factor in this model so that we can better understand the traffic volumes that we're going to expect to see in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So that's why it's here. We've asked them to give us a quote. They gave us a quote of $29,950 plus all applicable taxes. And so we're recommending to update this, as they were the original ones to do it. So they have all the background information in the model built, of course. And so it's more just updating a few, some of the parcels of land and remodeling that.
The money's there in our capital budget under streets engineering account, so you're not looking for extra money. And, I think that's what we have to be doing, is if we're going to spend money and invest in these studies, is every few years you do have to update them, especially with the growth that we are experiencing in the city.
And just another matter I forgot to mention, and it's not mentioned in here, but as His Worship is aware, we are aware that SDU has some newer plans in place. We were not sure at the time of what they had planned for their remaining vacant piece of the land. I guess there's some movement from them, and there's some urgency for us to take into consideration that on how that future road network needs to play out and how that all impacts. So that will also be looked at part of this plan, which was partially looked at before.
Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is just more of a broad, I guess, comment or question to maybe the manager, and I know Richard's here as well, and CAR, on this, on the growth in this area, and we're in partnership, it overlaps with the province, correct? And I understand the reason for, for this update. But as engineers and as people trying to be visionaries, how confident and kind of can you be that I'm sure there's some obvious things that probably have to happen between the municipal and the provincial parties as it relates to this, road piece and the vision. And Scott, you're not new to this, but I'm just kind of wondering what confidence and broad stroke vision you see as you know, if we're going to, I guess, ultimately, you know, spend some money, some first steps that hopefully, you know, aren't mistakes or, when you're doing it, I just curious. I know it's a
I
bit of a
think that-
loaded question.
Their vision was there too, John, and it's probably changing as plans are coming in for these new apartments and stuff, but it's not a partnership with the province. This would be city roads, correct?
That's correct. So we take into consideration, of course, all the highways that lead in the city that, you know, bring traffic into the zone of our road network. But it is solely a city-funded initiative because, you know, we take those numbers into account, but we need to know, the goal for this is to kind of give us some roadmap for the next 10, 15 years of construction in that area. What the study will help us determine is kind of the growth that we anticipate in that area, and when we anticipate it, and then that will help us figure out when we need to trigger, whether it's road construction, intersection improvements, those types of features, so that we can further manage the traffic growth in this area. We're already seeing it now, some challenges in this area, especially Capitol Drive and University Avenue area. It is especially peak hours, we are nearing capacity. And so we need to better understand, you know, we don't want to go out there and, okay, we'll fix the issue for today, but what is it going to look like in 20 years? You know, we want to build in a buffer on what we do today so that we're not back there again and for a number of years. And that's what the study helps us determine is, you know, do we need to expand? Can 4 lanes handle it, or do we need 5 lanes or 6 lanes? Those are the things that we have to look at as part of this overall plan. And so that's what it will help us create that roadmap for the future for construction.
You need to add about 25% to what the projection will be, because as you just said, we did this in 2019, and we already have to come back to look at this because of the amount of growth we have. It's like when we build schools, and in 5 years, they're full. So you almost have to be, you know, generous with what we could be faced with as we continue to
Absolutely.
grow.
And then, just
Go ahead,
If I
Councillor.
could, Matt, so then, I guess, Manager Scott, that probably overlaps or some in conjunction with the transit vision too? Does that play into any kind of planning on your part?
Oh, there.
Counselor, so so that does get looked at on, you know, how, you know, there are some factors that get built into there on transit and how that's going to, you know, that will help reduce traffic in some ways. So especially now that we have a new transit plan, those goals of that plan will be factored into that, and it does help reduce the anticipated growth. But again, so it does get factored in as a part of the overall plan. So the more plans we have, the better our predictions can be, and so it's great that we do have that plan so that our consultant can take that and include it in their analysis for this area.
Thank you. Councillor Twill.
Yeah. The last time we embarked upon this exercise, Scott, we did have a public meeting at the Confederation Center. Has there been any thought to, when this revised plan comes in, we showcase it to the community, to solicit their, you know, their perspective as to what the plan will look like, and, you know, yourself and representatives from CBCL there to field the questions. You know, we had a big turnout at that last meeting, which was held at the Confederation Center. That was an enormous turnout, and I would suggest, you know, to go back to the Confed Center, or it doesn't have to be the Confed Center. We could go out to the Rod Royalty Inn or the West Royalty Community Center, the gymnasium, have a meeting, be able to you know, showcase the plans. You did that with North River Road, well attended. I think that's a worthy exercise. Secondly, there's no doubt about it, there's more traffic on the city streets than there ever was. And people are calling into question, you know, in terms of, you know, our population growth and how that ties into the infrastructure. And infrastructure, when we talk infrastructure, we're talking, you know, streets, where all this intense I underlined the word intense. Vehicle traffic is commuting in and out of our city. I've seen traffic I've never seen before. And it's, I guess the question becomes, when does it get to the point where we can't handle any more traffic in this city? Because it's like, you talk about North River Road, for example. Traffic sometimes is backed up right into the intersection, trying to make a left-hand turn into the SO, just as an example. That goes on all the time. But there's a tremendous amount of traffic on our city streets, and, people are saying, do we have the capacity to be able to handle all this traffic, even when this exercise is completed? Again, you tie it into the population growth, commercial traffic, transporting goods and services into our city on a daily basis, 7/24. There's a lot of questions, and I don't know if this revised study is going to look into those variables or not, but there's a broader issue here that residents in this city are talking about, is do we have the capacity to be able to handle all this traffic? And how does it tie in to the population growth strategy?
I think probably we just heard the manager say that we are approaching capacity with our traffic, which is why we're looking at trying to improve.
Yep.
Well, you can hear Scott's, but we just heard him, but you can hear him again.
So I think there's two things at play. There's what we call in the engineering world capacity of an intersection, which is, what the engineering industry has set as an acceptable wait time for people to proceed through an intersection, what that perception is. So we're nearing that at certain intersection around the city, no doubt. The capacity, well, that's a broader question because it's all about perception and how much we're willing to wait. You look at, obviously, we're not a big city like Boston or Toronto or anything, but people that travel the same distance of University Avenue from downtown to the mall, in Toronto, they're going to take about an hour. During peak rush hour, we're about 15 minutes. So it's about what is that target are we trying to hit, and how long, are we talking, our peak hour or our peak traffic time lasts probably about 30 minutes. Where in Toronto, we're talking hours. So there's kind of two different things that are at play here, or up for discussion, I guess. So that's my best answer I can give you. It's from an engineering perspective, we have some intersections of roads that are, we want everything to flow really well, but we recognize that, not every time, not all times during the day is it going to flow perfectly. And then it gets into that question, okay, how much are we willing to sacrifice waiting in traffic until we get to our final destination. And I think it's a question that's been debated around the world. Every jurisdiction looks at that and tries to figure that out. And it all comes down to, at the end of the day, money, and land. Do we want to expand? Do you want to invest that money into that? Or do we want to look at alternate options like transit? And that's kind of where a lot of things are going. That's right. More transit,
That's right.
increased services will help reduce the demand on our roads and street, but sometimes you got to build it and then they'll come, and I think that's the challenge. We need to start building more capacity in our transit so that we can then start to hopefully see a decrease in our demand on our vehicles, which will help us in the long run.
I think all this is tied into our strategic plan where we see all those pillars where we're trying to look at the bigger picture and accommodate that.
So, Madam Chair, you mentioned the strategic plan. Have we aligned that? Can I ask that question first through the chair to the chief engineer? Have we aligned this? Because we spent some money on that strategic plan. I know some councilors wanted to get it done. We got it done. Does it line up? Mr. Adams? That's my first question.
I guess I don't quite understand. Does this study align with that, or?
Yeah, we have the city has a strategic plan
Yeah.
that we invested in and that looked at different areas, water, wastewater, parks, recreation, roads, infrastructure. Does this line up with what you're talking about? Does it line up with our strategic plan?
In our opinion, I believe, yes, it does, under the pillar of infrastructure.
Environment.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we can further look into that, but I believe it does, yes.
So it's for $29,000. What's the bar that, over 25,000, did you get three bids?
So that's why it's here. We didn't, because TVCL was the one that just did it. So they have all the reports and everything in draft form, or can easily update the original report and remodel everything. They have all that information, all those resources
Yeah.
and
I have the
knowledge.
I have the
Yeah.
original report. 219, and it was released in April of 2022. This is the report. So I thought when and I sent some emails to you and Mr. McEwen. I only heard back from you on a text, never heard back from Mr. McEwen. But Scott, we had Harborside Engineering that did a plan for SDU Board of Governors. They presented 4 options. So why couldn't we got 5, 6 engineers with the city, why couldn't we sit down, the engineers sit down and review their concept plan? But what we're doing is we're giving $30,000 without tender to CBCL, very reputable firm, has done lots of work for the city. But we're doing that, like, that's why procurement bylaw, that's why we need something that guides us going into the future. So why would we get CBCL that did the original report to review their own report? I think you'd have to go out to
Yeah.
someone else to do a review, or to look at, I think what we're trying to do is Harborside Engineering, you've spoken to Kerry Taylor. SDU's trying to move this property. It's prime location. We have a possible development that I think is going to move now, because by the time we get done with this study took 2019 to 2022, wasn't finalized till 2023. Look, again, we're slow in the process, and I try to communicate with the Director of Community Services and yourself to find a path forward. Here we are. The agenda that I had for this meeting, it must have been one that Sherry copied off earlier. It didn't include this. I got to get in here to open my package that I opened yesterday. Didn't see this review of the West Royalty Commercial Area Traffic Impact Study, final report. Like, you know, SDU didn't like what was in this. They told you. It was too costly for them to develop those properties, so that's why they hired an engineer, Kerry Taylor, Harborside Engineering. They do a lot of this work. This is what they're road engineers, roads and streets, and they said, here are some options. So why can't we, with our own engineers in-house, look at those options and say, okay, yeah. Because Councillor Tweel's right. If we go out to CBCL, we have to go back to a public consultation. We had a public consultation in this. He's right. If you look at revisiting this report with a CBCL report too, it will require a public consultation. So can you just step me through what I've been reaching out to
Absolutely.
you
Yep.
and the director, only heard back from you in a text, and just give us some information.
No, great questions, Your Worship. So two different things. This is not a review of that document, it's an update. With any master plan, you need to update it, especially when you have major changes that could have a significant outcome on the projected volumes of traffic. And what we're expecting is, some of the work that we're projecting to have to do in 2041, I believe is when the report went out, that may be as soon as 2031. So we need to better understand how soon is that volume of traffic going to reach those trigger points that we've set before we need to do additional work on this road network. The other part from SDU, I agreed, in 2019, SDU did not know what they wanted to do over there, and they were a little concerned about us identifying a road network through their vacant land. And that's the land that would be west of the trail and north and just south of the bypass. We've looked at their plans, and they've given us some great options, and we're reviewing them. The challenge is we need to better understand how much traffic is going to be coming and going from this zone so that we can understand how many intersections we need to put in, so that we can better handle that traffic flow. It's not that, they are very qualified to do that work and to designate or propose some roads. But this plan is a multi-level review in terms of the staff that CBCL needs to have. So CBCL not only needs to have staff that understands the road networks, they need to have the planners behind them who can look at the growth of the city and take the numbers of projected growth for residents and include all the development that is expected for both this area and in areas out, in East Royalty as well, and understand how that growth in the next few years is going to impact the zone. So that's why it is pretty strategic work. They've already have all that historical knowledge. They already have all the ground level information, and the model's already built. So now they just need to plug and play a few numbers and run some simulations to be able to update the report. It's not a review, it's an update to the report to provide us with new numbers, whether it's volume of vehicles we expect and what year we expect them to be, and when is a recommended schedule for construction in future years. And in regards to SDU, so one of the things we've been waiting to understand is, we need to understand how they plan to subdivide the land and the type of users that they plan to have on it, because that will impact where we need intersections and road connections. And one thing we need to keep in mind too is there's access issues. So every area needs to have 2 accesses from an emergency standpoint for emergency services. And so some of those proposals that they presented, I believe 2 of them did not meet those minimum standards.
But option 3 did.
No,
Option 3, layout 3 did.
I can't comment here today on that. And again, we have given them interim approval. We said there's one intersection we all know it's going to have to go in, and I believe the last I heard that we would agree that there would be a road roughly in a certain area up to a certain point. And I think we're just waiting to hear back from them on that, just to make sure that's okay, and that would help them at least get through the next little bit, working with one of the parties that are interested in buying some land from them. And then while that takes place over the next month or 2, then our CBCL can do this work to better understand all that traffic volume that's going to be in this area and better provide us with an update so that we can better plan for the future.
So, Madam Chair, just to follow up. When CBCL did this West Royalty Commercial Area traffic study, they had our growth development plan. There's numbers in there. There's for water and wastewater, public works. Very comprehensive plan. Shows the projections. So, and with, and I know our director would know for community services, that more people will have more impact on roads and services and infrastructure. We know that, right? How much impact? That's a thesis, I shouldn't say a thesis, but a calculus that you and the other engineers have to use. So CBCL, will they be reviewing what Harborside submitted as possible options for this property? And second to that, Mr. Adams, is how will SDU decide, or how will they crystal ball, well, we're going to have a housing development up here, we might have a Costco up here. They're selling land. I don't think they're going to, they don't have a matrix of, this is a little store will go here, playground. I think what they're doing, this is, I believe is the last parcel of land that SDU owns, which they inherited back in 1969 when when PWC and SDU were amalgamated. So they've sold a lot of land since then, but all that money goes to endowment funds for students going through UPEI. So, again, I'll just repeat, CBCL, will they be reviewing Harborside's proposals and do some calculations on it?
Your Worship, so yes, that is correct. They will be doing that. Back in 2019, when we started this process, There is some, they weren't sure if it was going to be all commercial, or if there's going to be some residential. Those are some additional questions that we'll have to ask. It's starting to seem like it's going to be more commercial, which impacts our numbers, of course, versus residential. So those are some things that we need to take into consideration as part of that. Again, really and truly, the key is how, what type, it's not so much the road network on their vacant land, it's how that road network interacts with our existing infrastructure and how we can handle it. Because, if we put a whole bunch of traffic on, say, Spence, Babineau, and it's all commercial up there, what pressures is that going to put on Babineau? We don't know. So we have to model that. And maybe we need to create another intersection because we need to, another signalized intersection to Malpeque Road. So again, there's a number of questions that they have to look, a number of scenarios that they'll run through before making a recommendation to us on, where those connection points are. And again, if it's an S road through the vacant land, it's not the end of the world. If that works better for them, it's more so how is their development going to interconnect with our existing system out there.
Thank you. Councillor Twill.
Reference is made to the report that CBCL previously completed, 2019. So here we are, the year 2024. No one, I don't believe, back in 2019, and even the professionals would have anticipated or had the vision to think that we would have this much traffic on our city streets. So I support the exercise. I support the the revisions to the plan to go out and to look at it again from a comprehensive perspective. Nobody here can deny the fact there's much more traffic. Nobody expected the population growth, the amount of people who are living in this province, people living in this city, the services that are required, people that are commuting in all the major entranceways into the city, whether it's North River Road, University Avenue, St. Peter's Road, Mount Edward Road, Kensington Road, Water Street. There's going to have to be some decisions made here, because a lot of people, and you use the word perception, Scott, and that perception is real. That perception is real. A lot of people believe that we're getting to that breaking point where they really believe our infrastructure, and I tend to agree with them, our current infrastructure cannot effectively handle all this traffic. This city wasn't built for all this traffic. It was never built for all this traffic. And it's great to say that, we need to enhance and improve our infrastructure, and the old trickle-down economics where it's all sent down to the municipal level, and you got the federal government, at the province, and they're saying we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but then the onus comes down to the city. Trickle-down economics, where everything is downloaded to city government. There's some real philosophical questions that need to be answered. I don't know if this revised plan will answer all of that, Scott. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's a good exercise. I support it. But we've got to look at this city in terms of infrastructure from a number of different perspectives. But this is critical. This is a very critical exercise. As I said before, back in 2019, when we embarked upon this exercise, nobody in their wildest dreams ever thought we were going to have this amount of traffic on our city streets. And I even argue that our city streets can't handle this type of pounding. I mean, it's constant, daily, 7/24.
Thank you, Councillor Twill. So I'm hearing that you're in support of moving this to council for approval for the study. Do I have someone that will second this? Councillor McAleer will second it. All those in favor to
No
move it?
resolutions on the floor?
Yes,
Again.
Your Worship.
Just through the chair to the chief engineer. If I go to page 24, chief engineer, it's just after the resolution. That was the resolution that was passed March 19th, 2020, 9-0. Council Twill was absent. It was about CBCL in the amount of $69,000 for the city's growth management study. So CBCL has done the growth management study. They've done this West Royalty commercial area traffic impact study. So this money that we're voting on tonight is to review just the traffic study or the growth management study in connection with the West Royalty commercial area traffic impact study, and also how it connects to our, or I shouldn't say connects to, but how it adheres to our strategic plan. Is that correct?
Your worship, you're correct. So it's only the traffic portion for the West Royalty
That's it,
commercial
not the
area.
growth management study or the.
No, it's just this particular area, just because of the significant current and expected development in the area in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, again, this sets precedent because anything over 25,000 requires 3 bids by invite. And we're not doing that. We're overriding that. So just let's keep that in mind. Correct, Mr. Again, through the chair to the chief engineer.
So, Your Worship, so just like in 2020, as you just mentioned the resolution, the additional 69,000 was added to the growth management study outside of a tender process because it went along with the work that was already being done. It was an extension. And so again, because this is a revision to the existing report that was just accepted by council and staff a couple of years ago. And again, they're very familiar with the report and the issues and the challenges we're having in this area. It made the most sense that they just revise and update their existing report and model that they have created for us.
No, but 2020 was $69,000 was to perform a comprehensive study of undeveloped lands. This was added on to what our original tender was. So we couldn't go to tender on something that was already started. There's no, I don't see the connection there. This is a review of our traffic, West Royalty commercial area traffic impact study. This is not adding on to it, it's a review of it. So
It's an update.
any firm could do a review of a traffic study. It wouldn't have to be the author of the study. I just have issues with the, awarding without going to tender on whether it's invitational or just open tender, but it's in front of us now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Question?
Questions called. All those in favor to move this to council? 2 and against? 1. 2-1 for the record. Okay, thank you. Good discussion. The next thing on our agenda is the minutes from the Civic Board for Persons with Disabilities. If you have a minute just to glance through and if there's any questions. One thing I would like to do is to say thank you very much to Amber Robb for, she joined our committee meeting as a staff person last week and was able to put a really nice user-friendly accessibility awards template up on our city website. So if anybody's listening and they feel that they would like to recognize a business or education individual, the forms are online where they can actually nominate. So thank you, Amber, for your good work on that.
And do we have a new chair?
We do have a new chair for that committee. Glenn Flood will assume the position of the chair. And there was some discussion around similar things, trying to kind of fine tune maybe some areas that they'd be able to zone in on and focus on. For project-based, they're looking at accessible parking is kind of one. Anyway, that's it for an update. Is there anything that we would like on our agenda for our next meeting that will be coming up in September? Any notices that you'd like to put up?
No.
I'm sure we'll hear somewhere along the way, Scott. The only other thing today then is an
Move to adjourn.
Moved by His Worship, second by Councillor McAleer. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.